Incredible. How a single mom's touching act in a snowstorm transformed her life and the Mafia game. Evelyn stared at the relentless snowfall blanketing her small Midwestern town. It was surreal to think that just a few months ago, she was juggling shifts at the diner and the local grocery store, believing that she was somehow making ends meet. Now, the desolate silence of the morning was filled with heaviness, both outside and within. Every flake that settled was a weight added to her burden, a reminder of her struggle as a single mother. She had lost her job without warning, and now the thought of providing for her 2 children gnawed at her insides. Shuffling through knee-deep snow made her body ache, but her mind was a tempest. What if this storm continued? What if her part-time jobs weren't enough? The pressure mounted. She constantly battled the voices of self-doubt. Was she failing her children? The expectations of society loomed large, like the storm cloud overhead. The perfect image of motherhood felt like a distant, unattainable dream. As she trudged through the thick snow, her eyes landed on Mr. Jackson, the elderly detective from next door. His defiance against the snow was waning. He struggled to free his car from its icy prison. A strange tug of compassion ignited in her, battling fiercely with her own fears of inadequacy. Would it even matter if she helped? Questions spiraled through her mind. Still, that small flicker of empathy pulled her forward. "You need a hand, Mr. Jackson," she called out, forcing a smile as she approached, feeling strangely lighter despite the weight of winter's chill. "Oh, bless you, Evelyn," he replied, his frail voice heavy with gratitude. As they worked together, Evelyn found a momentary escape from her worries. But as she helped him dig out, something else began to awaken within her. Bits of Mr. Jackson's adventures unfurled, revealing glimmers of resilience that sparked an ember of hope. His stories shared experiences that echoed her own trials and triumphs, forging a connection she never anticipated. Could she find strength in his past? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. However, darkness began to creep in, manifesting in whispers about a local gang that had recently emerged. Evelyn couldn't shake the worry that they might target her children, leveraging their innocence against her. The thought ignited a fire within her, stirring up fears she fought to bury. Her spirit hardened, and she knew she had to confront this growing threat. Still, what about the stability she craved for her family? She felt trapped, oscillating between fear and a fierce determination. Would helping those from Mr. Jackson's past bring about a reckoning or unravel everything she put together? As the snow continued to cascade around them, Mr. Jackson's significant history lingered in the air, a reminder of the dangers that prowled the edges of her new life. With every story they exchanged, she harnessed a hidden talent, a voice that could speak truths. Yet, rising against those shadows entailed risks she hadn't counted on. Resolved or terrified? The clarity of her path turned murky like the thick snow around her, and as questions swirled, Evelyn was poised on the precipice of chaos. Would she risk everything for the truth, or fade back into the background, losing her newfound voice? The chilling winds whispered her name, and all she could do was listen, teetering on the edge of choice. Evelyn admired Mr. Jackson for a moment, struck by the calmness surrounding his tales despite the chaos in her life. Over the last few days, his lingering presence had provided a strange sort of comfort. Each anecdote about his time on the force carried vivid strokes of bravery and decision, contrasting sharply with her indecision and fear. As she wrestled with her anxiety, one thing became clear: she couldn't afford to let fear dictate her choices any longer. "You've faced danger before, haven't you?" she asked, the vulnerability in her voice seeping through the layers of uncertainty. The question hung between them, a frayed thread waiting to be woven into something meaningful. Damar. Jackson leaned against his car, snowflakes gathering in his tousled white hair. "Every day," he responded, his eyes glinting with unspoken truths. But the greatest battles often take place in our minds. You have to confront what scares you, Evelyn. Otherwise, it just festers. His words opened a door in Evelyn's heart, one that had been tightly shut ever since her job loss. She had spent so long navigating the overwhelming currents of life's demands that she had forgotten her own strength. Her dreams were suffocated beneath the weight of expectations. Her unyielding desire to be a capable mother had overshadowed any ambition she once harbored. They exchanged stories while clearing the snow, and as he spoke, Evelyn realized she yearned not only to protect her children but also to redefine herself. "Mr. Jackson, what if I don't know how to fight back?" she questioned, mapping the terrain of her mind for a strategy. She felt raw and exposed, waiting for guidance. He smiled knowingly. "You already know the first step. Acknowledgement. Once you recognize the threat, you'll start carving the path to confront it. That's how I started, acknowledging the fear, turning it into resolve." His encouragement crystallized within her. She had begun to see the gang as an adversary, threatening her fort. Instead of shrinking away, she would forge a plan, torn between the duty of protecting her children and the necessity of confronting the danger awaiting her. With the snow swirling around them, Evelyn could feel the warmth of newfound purpose coursing through her. The past few weeks, each moment had been a blur of hesitation and dread, but now adrenaline surged within her. She could gather knowledge, form alliances, and take steps towards safeguarding her family. Could she muster the courage to contact some of the other single parents and discuss the imminent threat? In that instant, another wave of determination rose. As they parted ways, a shift occurred in her. Evelyn walked home with her head held high against the falling snow, the path to reclaiming her identity illuminating before her, step by step. She was no longer the passive figure in her own life story, rather, she was the author. Each decision she made from this moment had the potential to shape not only her future but that of her children. Back at home, surrounded by the remnants of her personal and professional disarray, Evelyn began drafting a rough plan of action. She would reach out to Mr. Jackson for guidance, use his connections, and gather the courage to involve the local community. Everyone was on edge, unclear of how to address the gang. In that moment, she recognized an uncharted aspect of herself. She had the ability to lead, to fight back. As the warmth of determination bloomed within her, a nagging suspicion crept in. Would her escalating confrontation with the gang ignite retaliatory violence against her family? The house felt heavy with unspoken fears, the shadows of doubt creeping back into her mind. It was a battle she had begun within herself, and she sensed that the first skirmish was unavoidable. With a deep breath, she picked up her phone. Her resolve hardened as she prepared to enter a new chapter of her life, one filled with risks but also potential for profound change. The time had come to step into the unknown. A cascade of emotions swirled within her, teetering on a critical decision that would challenge her at every level. The moment approached swiftly, her finger hovering over the contacts. Could she really do this? Perhaps every strong voice needed to start somewhere. Would her leap of faith uncover the resources she needed to protect her children, or would it unleash dangerous forces she couldn't contain? The answer lingered just out of reach, but the opportunity was upon her, and as she pressed the button to call, she felt the ground shift beneath her, provoking both a thrill and a tremor of dread. Evelyn's heart raced as she listened to the line ring, each tone echoing the weight of her decision. She was not merely taking a step, she was pivoting her entire existence, transforming her fear into something palpable. "Hello." The voice on the other end was familiar yet distant. It was Sarah, one of the other single parents from the neighborhood. "Hi, Sarah." "It's Evelyn," she managed, forcing her voice to maintain its steady cadence. "I've been thinking we need to talk about what has been going on in our community." The ensuing silence spoke volumes. Did Sarah feel the same urgency? Did she hear the tremor of fear laced within Evelyn's words? "Are you serious?" Sarah finally replied. "You think it's time to do something?" Evelyn found strength in the question, an affirmation that she wasn't alone in her concerns. "Yes, I really do. I think we need to come together." As they spoke, Evelyn felt the stitches of her plan tighten, binding her to a sense of purpose and community. The initial tremors of doubt slowly evolved into a collaborative resolve. This wasn't merely about addressing the gang threat, it was about rediscovering the strength she had within, the kind of strength she longed for her children to see in her. After their conversation, Evelyn began collecting her thoughts. She drafted a simple invitation for a gathering, a call to action that resonated deeply in her heart. Community meeting, protecting our families. The title alone ignited a fire in her. She envisioned mothers and fathers, each with a story, each with a stake in their children's safety. At first, she hesitated to share her experiences, fearing vulnerability would expose weaknesses. Yet, the faces of her children flickered in her mind, urging her to proceed. With each word she wrote, she felt a spark of resilience illuminating her path. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the manifestation of her commitment to stand for her family. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activities. She circulated the invites, fueled by an excitement she hadn't felt in years. Conversations were had, numbers exchanged, and as each parent committed to joining her that Saturday, she felt the bonds of connection strengthening her resolve. It was about more than just the gang, it became a quiet revolution against her own fears, her own complacency. Yet, with each intent to gather, the shadows of dread loomed larger. Would the gang notice this gathering? Would their retaliation translate into real danger for her family? These questions persisted, gnawing at her resolve. Evelyn fought to keep herself from spiraling back into anxiety. This was a confrontation not just with external threats but also with her own perceptions of strength. As the day of the meeting dawned, she stood at the door, taking deep breaths to manage her nerves. The weather mirrored her emotional state, as snowflakes danced through the air, reminiscent of both beauty and obscured visibility. As parents trickled in, the atmosphere shifted from one of tension to solidarity. They gathered around her in the living room, each person a testament to the strength hardwired into the fabric of their community. In that moment, for the first time, she fully grasped her role not merely as a mother or a victim but as a leader ready to weave their stories into a stronger narrative. Thank you all for coming. We're here to face what has been threatening our families, Evelyn began, her voice firm. This was it, this was her moment. But just as they began to discuss strategies, a loud knock echoed through the house, freezing the room. The fear thickened the air, disrupting the fragile sense of unity they had begun to build. Evelyn's heart raced again, her thoughts spiraling into a torrent of uncertainty. Had the gang followed her? All eyes darted to the door, each parent holding their breath, the looming question reverberating through the silence: who or what awaited them on the other side? As she approached the door, the unknown stretched out before her, alive with possibilities and peril. In that tense moment, Evelyn knew she was about to discover just how powerful her voice could be, for better or for worse. Evelyn's hand hesitated, suspended over the handle, the collective tension in the room crackling like static. The echo of the knock reverberated through her, awakening a primal instinct to protect. Questions flared: who was it? What did they want? The room had been filled with a budding courage, but with that knock, it felt perilously fragile, as if the very walls might collapse under its weight. Drawing a breath, she swung the door open. Standing before her was a neighbor, Bill, an elderly man from 2 doors down. The weather had turned in the last hours, snow piling high in their small suburban enclave, but Bill, with his snow-crusted beard, looked undeterred. His face bore a mask of urgency that sent a shiver down Evelyn's spine. "I came to warn you," he said, his breath visible in the cold air. "I've seen some unsavory characters lingering around. They might know about your meeting." A wave of icy dread coursed through her. It had begun. The danger she had feared was now a visceral reality. She felt the weight of every parent's hope behind her. Was she ready to bear it? Evelyn quickly ushered him inside, bolting the door behind him. As she turned back to the group, she noticed the eyes of her fellow parents, some wide with anxiety, others resolute, reading her reaction, seeking direction. "Thank you for your courage, Bill," she said, attempting to inject calm into the atmosphere. Everyone, it seems we have a situation. She detailed Bill's warning, watching as faces shifted from concern to determination. With every response she elicited some suggesting they leave, others advocating for a confrontation. Her heart thudded in her chest. Was she a leader? Or merely a mother caught in a web of chaos? Each opinion weighed upon her like a decision, a tightrope she must traverse. "We're not backing down," she declared, surprising even herself with the fierceness in her voice. The words rang within her, echoing the mantra she had been replaying in her mind. "We came here to protect our families, and we won't let fear decide our fate." A murmur of agreement surged among the parents, sparked perhaps by her defiance or the shared fears woven amongst them. They began discussing steps they could collectively take, their energy churning into a newfound camaraderie. Just as she felt herself pulling into the role of a leader, the gravity of her statement bore down like an unwieldy anchor. What pain might they have to face together? Her mind raced with the possibilities. The adrenaline clashed with her trepidation. It was no longer just community concerns, it became her fight. That realization stirred something deep within her, a restless spirit yearning to rise above her own fears. They devised a strategy to increase vigilance in the neighborhood, establishing patrols and making phone trees. Evelyn coordinated responsibilities, feeling the rush of empowerment swell through her. This was not merely about defense, it was evolving into a platform for them all to share. She was a catalyst for change, and with that, her identity morphed again. This was her rebirth, her fire igniting. But that journey towards unyielding resolve took a toll. When she took a moment, the facade of confidence began to crack under the enormity of what lay ahead. How far would she be willing to push against the threat? What peril might her children face just because she'd opened her mouth? Days passed like a blur of meetings, strategies, and nighttime patrols. Tension hung heavy, weighing upon their spirits, yet within her grew a certainty that she had not known before. Slowly, she began to see that her voice, an instrumental part of self-definition, wasn't just her lifeline, it was the anchor for others around her. Then came the call that would redefine everything. "Evelyn, it's Sarah. Something has happened. You need to come quickly, they're here." The urgency in Sarah's voice cut through her, a siren song racing her heart into a frenetic rhythm. Whatever awaited her now felt both menacing and inevitable. She knew they had crossed an unseen boundary, but could she muster enough strength for the ultimate confrontation? The moment of truth loomed, and tension pulsated in her veins. Evelyn stepped into the biting cold, the snow crunching under her boots, a stark reminder of the storm brewing not just in the skies above but in every fiber of her being. Sarah's words replayed in her mind like an anxious echo, amplifying both her dread and determination. She turned her thoughts inward, questioning whether she was prepared for what awaited her. The neighborhood around her was eerily quiet, the snow muting even the faintest sounds. It felt as if the world was holding its breath. Anxiety gnawed at her, yet there was an unexpected adrenaline pumping through her veins, a sense of purpose driving her forward. She was not just a mother, she was now a woman charged with the hope and safety of her community. As she approached Sarah's house, her mind raced with potential scenarios. What they meant in that context felt nebulous and sinister. She had to confront whatever threat loomed there, yet the anticipation of their next move simmered with fear, a potent mixture that had now become her reality. Stepping inside, she was immediately engulfed by the warmth, a stark contrast to the chill wrapping around her like a cloak. Sarah was beckoning urgently from the living room, her face pale and strained. "They've been watching us, Evelyn," Sarah whispered, urgency radiating from her tone. "Not just the meetings, but us, our children." "I didn't want to believe it, but I saw them outside," lurking. Her voice faltered, revealing the true terror of their situation. Evelyn felt bile rise in her throat, a wave of anger mingling with despair. They had juggled the idea of a greater threat since the moment they had organized themselves, but this was different. This was a direct assault on their very existence. The notion that shadows might hover over their children made her resolve harden. "How many?" she asked, her voice steady, even as her insides roiled. She needed facts, a foundation upon which to build her next steps. "3, I think." They weren't being discreet. I didn't want to panic, but it's escalating. The gravity of her words crashed over Evelyn like a sudden gust of wind. Panic was not an option, it could lead to mistakes. But fear was a game changer, tipping the balance of power. She had to strategize, to think clearly. Okay. We need to communicate this to the others. We need to escalate our patrols, create designated watch zones. If they're out there, we can't allow ourselves to be caught unaware. Her voice took on a confident edge, a reflection of the resolve taking root within her. Sarah nodded, her expression shifting from fear to something resembling hope. You're right. If we all know what to look for, we stand a better chance. In that moment, Evelyn felt the gravitational pull of leadership settle around her shoulders. It was both a mantle and an anchor, it weighed heavily, yet it ignited a fierce desire to take action. This wasn't merely about fear or safety, it was a testament to resilience, thrusting her into the role she'd been pushed toward. After a swift discussion, they both agreed to call an emergency meeting. The air hummed with urgency as they gathered their neighbors. As they discussed strategies, Evelyn's initial uncertainty began to dissipate, replaced by the enthusiasm of collaboration. But as she spoke, offering her ideas and strategies, an unsettling revelation hit her: she possessed more than just a voice, she had a talent for organizing and rallying others. The recognition of this latent ability surged through her, empowering her presence. She was not just a passive participant, she could weave together threads of resolve from fragile strands of doubt, all while standing firm against the encroaching threat. Yet scores of emotions clashed within her. The adrenaline of empowerment battled against the haunting specter of danger that lurked outside. Could she truly protect those she cherished most? Each decision weighed on her, life-altering and precariously balancing. When the meeting ended and the small group disbanded into the snowy night, Evelyn stood at the threshold, looking into the dark abyss outside. Shadows seemed to dance in the flickering streetlight, and a chill ran over her, not from the cold, but from the acknowledgement of the battle looming ahead. She turned, deliberating her next move. The enormity of the situation loomed overhead. Could she guide them through the black veil of fear ahead? The uncertain answer tightened in her chest. Just as she was about to make a plan, her phone buzzed violently, drawing her attention. But when she glanced at the screen, her face went pale. "We have to get out now," came a frantic message, far too simple, yet ominously reminiscent of the truth they were all grappling with. The winds were shifting, and preparing for what lay ahead had never felt so urgent. The moment of reckoning was upon them. Evelyn's mind raced as she stood frozen at the threshold, the weight of the message sinking in. There was no time for hesitation. Every instinct screamed that this was no mere threat, it was an urgent signal, a clarion call to action. She fumbled her thoughts, adrenaline coursing through her veins as her imagination conjured the worst possible interpretations of that single line: "We have to get out now." Gathering her composure, she called to Sarah, who remained in the living room, still grappling with the aftershocks of their earlier discussion. "Sarah, we can't wait. We need to warn everyone." Her voice cut sharply through the tension in the air. The embers of leadership she had kindled flickered dangerously, but now they ignited into fierce flames. "What are you saying?" Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief, uncertain of the decision taking shape before her. "There's no time to waste. If they are watching us, we must move, get to a safe place. Mobilize. Think of the children." Each word was its own command, fortified by a sudden surge of purpose. Evelyn pictured each family, each child, and felt their safety resting on her shoulders. It was her calling. Abruptly, she was no longer the hesitant mother who questioned her ability to lead. She was a force with the singular aim of protection. "Okay," Sarah nodded. "You're right. Let us contact the others. I'll start texting everyone in our group." As they moved swiftly through the house, Evelyn's heart pounded. The possibility of danger breathed down her neck, sharpening her focus. She realized her earlier doubts had been merely distractions, remnants of a self that no longer belonged in this transformed reality. They set to work, crafting messages that simultaneously communicated urgency and clarity. In that frantic space, amidst the racing thoughts, Evelyn discovered another layer within herself, the strategist. Each word in the alert was a brick laid down in a path toward safety. The goal was a sanctuary not just for her kids but for everyone. As the messages zipped through the digital ether, a web of vigilance, a tidal wave of determination washed over her. The walls of her self-doubt crumbled. The idea that she could precede action with calculated thought filled her with confidence. And soon, a momentum built that allowed her to think ahead, to visualize the next steps. Once their communication system was in place, the two women plunged into the night, navigating the snowy streets, each crunch underfoot amplifying the urgency of their mission. Vague outlines of their community lurked beyond the shadows. Were the eyes on them? She suppressed a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. After a swift but tense trek, a light came into view. Marquez House, a known safe haven. As they approached, Evelyn felt a mix of dread and vibrancy. This time, the flutters of anxiety had transformed into something electric. She was preparing for a confrontation that had yet to unfold but would test the limits of her newfound capabilities. The door swung open, revealing Mark, who stood with confusion etched on his face. "What is going on?" Evelyn inhaled deeply, ready to unveil the reality of the threat they all had been slowly unraveling. "We have to move. Now. There's a danger, and we need others to hear," her voice steady and firm, echoing through the dimly lit hallway, an embodiment of her newfound resolve. The urgency of their situation bounded forth from her lips. The others gathered, their faces a mix of intrigue and concern, but one glance around the room and Evelyn sensed their readiness to transform panic into unity. But just as her heart began to steady, a voice sliced through the anxious atmosphere, a chilling voice she had not expected to hear, echoing from the shadows of the doorway. "You think you can run this show, Evelyn?" The icy challenge made her pulse race anew, chaos swirling back to the forefront of her mind. The confrontation had come faster than she anticipated, but she was no longer the hesitant woman she used to be. She was a leader now, and she had no intention of backing down. As the tension unfurled around them, Evelyn was faced with her greatest trial yet. Could she stand firm against this new adversary, or would her resolve shatter under pressure? The moment of truth had arrived, launching her deeper into the fray, and in the heat of conflict, she would truly discover just how far she was willing to go to protect those she loved. Evelyn's gaze met the shadowed figure of Derek, the local leader who had often treated her ideas with disdain. His condescending tone was both a challenge and a provocation, stirring something deep within her, a blend of fear and fury that sparked a desire to defy him. She felt the energy in the room shift, the others watching her, waiting for her response. "You think this is a game, Derek?" Evelyn replied, her voice quaking but resolute. "Your arrogance could cost lives. We need to be vigilant, not petty." Each syllable felt like a small revolution against his looming presence. The shift in her internal narrative was seismic. She was capable. She was allowed to confront authority if it meant protecting those she loved. "Vigilance doesn't come from fear, Evelyn," he shot back, stepping into the room with calculated confidence. "It's about knowing when to act and when to lie low. You're stirring chaos." The air crackled, and Evelyn wasn't sure if it was anxiety or anger bubbling inside her. It was the latter, a fire fueled by the moment, an epiphany that clarity could emerge from confrontation rather than retreat. Would she be the voice of reason in this storm? She took a deep breath, readying herself not just to respond, but to assert her newfound identity as a leader. Taking action doesn't equal chaos, it equals survival. We have to mobilize our resources and support each other, not let fear hold us back. She stood taller, emboldened, her earlier uncertainties dissipating like vapor in the cold night air. The faces that surrounded her, Sarah, Mark, the others, now looked to her with a flicker of respect glimmering in their eyes. She was rallying them, not just against a real threat lurking in the unknown but also against the self-appointed authority that feared her growing resolve. "Listen to her, Derek," Sarah interjected, her voice steady. "You can't stifle her voice just because it challenges you. We need to adapt as a community." Her support anchored Evelyn further, reinforcing the notion that their growth hinged on solidarity, even amidst the tension. Yet Derek's expression hardened. You're naive, both of you. This isn't a storybook. You can't just wave your hands and expect everyone to follow. No, Evelyn declared, her heart racing as she confronted the possibility of rejection. But I can create a narrative where we choose our own endings. Together. The words felt liberating, a refreshing reclamation of narrative ownership over their circumstances. The tension became palpable as Derek recoiled, assessing her newfound authority that had sparked in the firefight of emotions. He glanced at their assembled group. He saw doubt, fear, but also an undeniable glimmer of belief igniting. Something shifted in the atmosphere, a ripple of change far beyond her expectations. You are merely postponing the inevitable, he retorted, but there was less bite in his voice, a sign that his power was under siege. You'll realize soon enough. I hope you're ready to bear that weight. Evelyn's resolve did not falter at his words. What had once felt heavy, now felt like a mantle. She could lead, chase away fear with determination, and build a bridge of support. The moment had transformed not just her standing but forged a new pathway for the others. As conversations began to unfold, with ideas sparking and momentum building, Evelyn sensed she was at the helm of something significant. The mission was clear: gather intelligence, prepare escape routes, and fortify their community against impending threats. But she also knew she couldn't do it alone. She'd need to confront her limits and push past habits of self-doubt. In the back of her mind flickered a shadow of foreboding. This confrontation was but a preamble to the larger challenge looming ahead. Would Derek cede control, or would he resort to more desperate measures to maintain his influence? Evelyn's heart raced as she felt the weight of this looming uncertainty. Yet this time, it wouldn't paralyze her. She had faced down Derek. She had woven herself into the fabric of resilience, a lesson learned that now propelled her into uncharted territory. As they began strategizing, a fresh sense of purpose surged. Evelyn realized it was crucial to forge ahead, not just for her children and friends, but also for herself. She had evolved, but could she sustain this momentum? The night deepened, hiding more than just secrets. As they mapped out their escape routes and gathered their resources, she wondered what other unexpected challenges waited in the shadows. The story had changed, and now the stakes felt even higher. Could she rise to meet each new test that this volatile landscape would throw at her, or would her newfound confidence crumble in the face of the overwhelming unknown? The air inside the room felt electric with potential as Evelyn surveyed her makeshift operations center. Sarah, Mark, and the others had already begun discussing the logistics of their escape routes. It was an exhilarating moment, yet beneath that thrill lay a persistent undercurrent of doubt. Evelyn had faced Derek and asserted her position, but leading was a different matter entirely. As conversations flowed, she grappled with the reality that boldness did not automatically translate into effective leadership. She needed to steer this group beyond mere survival. She needed to instill in them a sense of purpose. But how? A wave of self-doubt threatened to breach the newfound confidence she had just begun to embrace. Evelyn, Mark's voice snapped her out of her thoughts, we need someone to coordinate the intel-gathering mission. You took charge with Derek, and I think it's essential you maintain that momentum. The expectation in his gaze was clear: he wanted her at the helm. This should have been empowering, yet it sickened her stomach. What if I'm not ready? She confessed softly, half to herself, half to them. The vulnerability draped over her like a shroud, a reminder of all the times she had stumbled, of the moments she had second-guessed herself. Nonsense, Sarah interjected, leaning forward. You've been ready for this. Just look at how you faced Derek. You didn't back down when he challenged you. That's a leader in the making. The compliment warmed her, yet the doubt slinked back into her mind, whispering venomous words. Did they really understand the weight of her inexperience? She might have shown courage in that moment, but what if the reality of leadership on a larger scale was too much for her to handle? With a deep breath, Evelyn decided to channel that uncertainty into action. If she was going to lead, she would do so authentically. Okay, she said, steadying her voice, let us outline everyone's strengths. We can divide roles based on what each of you excels at. Her peers nodded in agreement, sparking a flurry of ideas that reoriented her trepidation into a shared mission. She felt a sense of shared strength, the burden of leadership suddenly divided among them. Perhaps the answer was not solely in her ability to lead others but in her capability to lift them up as well. Encouraging their individuality could solidify her own leadership. Minutes turned to hours as they plotted charts, weighing pros and cons, illuminating pathways. The adrenaline coursing through her veins propelled Evelyn forward, wrapping her doubts in the shadows of her growing resolve, yet amid the strategizing, Derek's earlier disdain danced ominously in her thoughts. What if he tries to sabotage us? She questioned aloud, the tension in her shoulders tightening. What do you think he'll do? Mark replied, his brow furrowed. This isn't movie, Evelyn. He can't just wave a magic wand and reassert control. But he believes he has more to lose than we do, she countered, wrestling with the apprehension that had settled deep in her gut. People like him don't relinquish power easily. I feel there's more at stake here than just our escape. The group began discussing defensive measures, and Evelyn's pulse quickened. Fear thrummed at the edges of her consciousness like a warning bell, and she wondered whether confronting Derek had merely triggered an avalanche of his retaliation. Just as the conversation shifted toward action items, an unexpected knock shattered their focus. The room fell silent. Uncertainty blanketed them once more. Who could it be? Had Derek already dispatched someone to confront them? Stay quiet, she commanded, heart slamming against her ribs like a caged animal. The shadows from the dim light danced nervously, mirroring the tension that coiled inside her. This was a test of everything she had recently built: her newfound confidence, her role as a leader, her very sense of identity. Summoning the courage, she turned toward the door, wondering if she could let this moment redefine her yet again. Could she face whatever lay beyond the threshold, or was the darkness meant to swallow her spirit whole? This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was the beginning of an unforeseen challenge that could very well lead to either collapse or transformation. The knock echoed in the silence, a harbinger of uncertainty that gripped Evelyn's heart. She exchanged glances with Sarah and Mark, each of them a reflection of her own anxiety. This was uncharted territory. She had navigated confrontations before, but the stakes had shifted. Now, it was not just her survival on the line, it was the fragile lives of those who had chosen to trust her. Should we open it? Mark whispered, voice barely above a breath. Evelyn shook her head, the fire of her earlier resolve igniting again. We need to know who's out there first. It could be Derek's men. The thought unnerved her, but the possibility galvanized her determination. If there was an enemy lurking outside, she would be ready. As the knock came again, more insistent this time, Evelyn took a step closer to the door. In that moment, she felt oddly empowered. The uncertainty no longer paralyzed her, it fueled a resolve she hadn't known existed. Whatever awaited on the other side of the door symbolized the risks of leadership. She was preparing to confront not just an unknown intruder but also the insecurities that had haunted her since she'd taken this mantle. Let me handle this, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She grabbed a heavy flashlight from a nearby table, its weight oddly reassuring in her palm. It was a strange comfort to wield something tangible, a tool of clarity amidst chaos. With a nod from her allies, she approached the door, her heart thundering in her chest. She reached for the handle, took a calming breath, and flung it open with a surge of adrenaline. The moment stretched. Outside stood a figure draped in shadows, the dim light barely illuminating their features. At the sight of them, her pulse quickened. It was Lila, a former classmate and ally from another life, now appearing worn and weary. Evelyn! Lila exclaimed, relief washing over her features. I knew I'd find you here. We need to talk, we're in danger. Evelyn's initial shock gave way to a wave of curiosity, and somewhere deep inside, the seeds of dread began to sprout again. What could Lila bring that would require such urgency? Come in. Evelyn urged, beckoning her into the room, though her instincts screamed to verify the situation first. Once inside, Lila glanced around, her expression shifting to one of concern as she observed the gathering. "I heard whispers, Evelyn," Lila began, anxiety crackling in her voice. "Derek's making moves. He's more dangerous than you think. He doesn't just want power, he wants blood." Evelyn felt the gravity of the words settling heavily in her stomach. Lila's presence here was heavy with implications. What if the tenuous alliances they had carefully woven would unravel before her eyes? Her confidence faltered as she realized the distance from boldness to recklessness was thinner than she had anticipated. "What do you mean?" Evelyn demanded, needing to maintain the authority she had fought hard to build. The fear lurking in Lila's eyes only magnified her uncertainty. The potential for chaos was now tangible, invading her carefully crafted space. "He's gathering forces, loyalists ready to act. I overheard them say your name. They want to crush you before you can gain real strength," Lila explained, her voice barely above a whisper as if the walls themselves held ears. Evelyn's thoughts spiraled. Isolation had felt terrifying, but the thought of collision with Derek's aggression weighed even heavier. This was no longer about escape or survival, it was a test of her resolve and ability to safeguard not just her own life but those she now called friends. Suddenly, her earlier method of collaboration didn't feel like enough. They needed more than a unified front. What if they needed a fight? "Listen up, everyone," she called out, rallying her companions who had been listening, rapt and afraid. "We have no time to waste. Lila's right. It's time to strategize not just for escape but for a showdown if it comes to that." Questions emerged from the group, doubts radiating from their faces. The fear was palpable, thrumming through the air like the charge before a storm. "Evelyn!" Mark interjected, concern evident. "What if the confrontation only escalates things? What if no?" She cut him off, her voice firm but her heart racing. She sensed the path ahead required more than mere planning, it required the embrace of a burgeoning drive within her. She would not be a passive leader. The time has come to face not just Derek but our own fears as well. We cannot let him dictate our lives any longer. As the tension thickened, Evelyn recognized this pivotal moment as one that could shape her entire journey. There was no going back now. The confrontation loomed, and somehow, she would rise to meet it. She had to. But as she looked to her friends, preparing for this unforeseen escalation, another knock echoed this time, a reminder that the real battle was just beginning. What awaited them on the other side would forge new alliances, test old loyalties, and define who they truly were. Would she emerge transformed, or would the shadows of doubt engulf her once more? Evelyn stood amidst her gathered neighbors, a flurry of adrenaline sparking through her veins as she processed the gravity of Lila's revelation. This was no longer merely about neighborhood safety, it was about facing the rising tide of adversity head-on. She was ready to confront Derek not as a victim of circumstance but as a force of change. The community meeting hadn't just been a response to fear, it had become a platform for empowerment. Each determined gaze from the parents in the room reinforced her newfound leadership, but the ominous specter of Derek's potential actions loomed heavily. As the seconds stretched, she took a measured breath, rallying not only her thoughts but also the resolve of her allies. "We can't be passive any longer," Evelyn declared, her voice steady and unwavering. "Derek's gathering strength, we need to gather ours. Our community is stronger when we act together, not just defensively, but proactively." Sarah nodded vigorously, sensing the shift that had taken place within Evelyn. "What should we do first?" "We need an organized offense. Knowledge is power." Evelyn's heart swelled, each voice chimed in, echoes of solidarity charging the atmosphere with newfound vitality. She began to outline their strategy, gather information on Derek's movements, build their defenses, and prepare to confront any backlash that might come. They were no longer mere parents worried about an inconceivable threat, they were warriors in a fight for their lives. As plans crystallized and roles were established, Evelyn saw the diversity in strengths and skills among them. Mark was quick on his feet, adaptable and resourceful, while Sarah had a gift for communication that could rally support even at the darkest of times. Lila brought insight into Derek's inner circle, invaluable intel that could shift the narrative. Each piece fell into place, fortifying the foundation of their burgeoning alliance. Days passed in a whirlwind of preparation and strategy meetings. The atmosphere buzzed with a palpable energy. Evelyn immersed herself in her role, leading the charge to organize patrols and devise contingency plans. She reached out to other single parents in surrounding neighborhoods, broadening their net of information and support. Once standing on the fringes of fear, she now found herself at the forefront, commanding unity against a common foe. The empowerment that surged through her invigorated her every morning. The looming dread of Derek and his cohorts faded as she actively sought solutions and built connections. The invisible shackles of insecurity began to crumble. Her willingness to confront adversity garnered respect and confirmed her capability. Finally, the day arrived when they received word Derek was planning an operation. He intended to put pressure on their movement, unsure of how to proceed with their newfound organization. The call to action resonated. It was now or never. Evelyn felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders, but rather than burden her, it infused her with strength. As they assembled in the local park disguised as a casual gathering, Evelyn was acutely aware that today's meeting would lay the foundation for the future. They were prepared to face Derek, not just to protect but to reclaim their narrative. The air thrummed with anticipation as they exchanged glances, weaving plans and contingencies in whispered discussions. No longer a timid mother hiding fearful of the shadows, Evelyn stood tall before her neighbors, her heart pulsing with conviction. This was not merely self-defense, this was about defining who they were as a community. The confrontation loomed like a storm cloud gathering in the distance, but in this moment, Evelyn exuded an undeniable clarity. Forget fear, she was ready to break the cycle. The arrival of Derek's men began to materialize across the park, disruptive, loud, and fueled with an edge of menace. Evelyn raised her chin, resolving to take charge. As she stepped forward, empowered by the strength of her community, she signaled to her allies to fall into formation and stand united. They would face this head-on, not as isolated victims but as a collective that had forged through hardship and emerged emboldened. The chants of solidarity rang out loud, resonating against the threat that was approaching, a chorus that signaled their resistance. With each heartbeat, Evelyn's transformation solidified. She had truly become the leader she always wanted to be. In doing so, she had paved a path not only for herself but for those who would come after her. With the confrontational air hanging heavy, Evelyn's voice cut clear through the silence, filled with promise and determination. It was no longer about survival, it was about asserting their space in the world, reclaiming what was theirs. She would no longer be confined by fear. She had risen and found her purpose. Standing shoulder to shoulder with her neighbors, the shift within her was undeniable. This was victory in progress, a testament that she had grown from a fragile past to unwavering resolve, establishing her position not only as a protector but as a leader in her community. This was her achievement, the ultimate conclusion born from chaos, a journey of growth that was marked by triumph and indomitable spirit. Evelyn fulfilled the dream of not just fighting for her children, but also transforming herself, embodying the very essence of dedication and courage, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. We need your support. Comment on your reactions and theories about this incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.